The average person takes 18,000 steps every day. Walking is like breathing. We do it, but we don't give it much thought. And that creates the problem. When we're walking, we're usually doing something else, like talking to a friend, or taking in the sights, or even reading a report.
Every year, more than 200,000 people in the United States are injured on the job from slips and falls. In fact, fall injuries rank second only to automobile accidents. And surprisingly, office workers account for a large percentage of fall injuries. Consider the serious consequences of falls: lost work days, loss of income, broken bones, bad backs, even permanent disability and death. This program was developed for you, people who keep both feet planted firmly on the ground most of the time. The reason is simple. People who work off the ground know the dangers and usually take the necessary precautions. But the closer we get to the ground, the less we pay attention, and the more likely we're to be injured by a fall. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 58% of all disabling falls occur from the same level. Even people who work in high-risk environments, such as police officers, are more likely to be injured by falling than by job-related hazards.
Since slips and trips often end in falls, we could call all of these accidents falls. But it will be helpful to discuss each separately, illustrating how to recognize, avoid, and control these hazards.
Jim, take this down to welding.
Okay.
And I need you to come back right away. I need you for something else.
Yes, sir.
Whenever there's too little friction or traction between your feet and the surface you're walking on, a slip occurs. 3 common causes of slips are constantly wet surfaces, occasional spills, and weather hazards. Whatever the reason for an area being wet, there is an approach to working safely. It's a matter of simply taking a few precautions. Shorten your stride to keep your center of balance under you. Walk with your feet pointed slightly out for a stable base, and make wide turns at corners. It's also a good idea to wear slip-resistant footwear appropriate for your job. These shoes feature special sole patterns specifically engineered for slick work areas. Regularly wet surfaces can be especially challenging. Using abrasive strips to increase traction and posting warning signs will help prevent most slips. Whenever you come across something like this, try to clean it up immediately. Or, if this is not possible, draw attention to the spill in some way so that others will see it and go around. After you've done this, report the problem to the appropriate person so that it can be cleaned up. In every life, a little rain must fall, but you don't have to. So, when the weather takes a turn for the worse, slow down and be ready to react to a change in traction. Put function before fashion. Wear slip-resistant shoes or overshoes and carry your nice shoes to the office. With ice and snow, wearing sunglasses is a good idea to help you see possible hazards.
Don't assume you're off the hook once you step inside. Wet shoes on a dry floor can be just as slippery as dry shoes on a wet floor. So, we've discussed all the slip hazards associated with floors, spills, and bad weather. Now let's take a look at some other possible slip makers.
Here's a common one. Secure throw rugs to the floor or use rugs with a skid-resistant backing. Coffee, the fuel that keeps America's offices running. Sometimes it ends up running on the floor. Clean this and all small spills immediately, not only to prevent slips, but because it's important to keep your work area clean. Just an innocent piece of paper. Maybe, maybe not. Stepped on just right, this piece of paper can cause a slip as quickly as an icy sidewalk.
Have you ever tried to walk on ball bearings? Probably not, but you get the idea. Don't ignore objects on the ground. This accident waiting to happen should be cleaned up immediately.
A lathe in a machine shop. This couldn't possibly be a slip hazard. Maybe not, but the oil leaking from underneath certainly is. This problem can be solved by wiping up the spill and using a drip pan.
This last slip hazard is not as immediately recognizable as the others. It involves moving onto different surfaces, such as moving from a carpeted floor to a vinyl or hardwood floor, which has less traction. The best piece of advice for handling this situation applies to everything we've talked about so far. Take your time and pay attention to where you're going.
Hi, Mom. Hi, son. Mom, look out for the bike.
A trip occurs whenever your foot strikes an object and your momentum causes you to be thrown off balance. In the last scene, we saw the three most frequent reasons as to how a trip occurs. Let's go back and identify them.
First, Mom's view is obstructed. She can't see where she's going. Second, she takes a shortcut instead of using a proven pathway. And third, there is clutter, especially near a walkway.
You might not think of poor lighting as a trip hazard, but watch this next scene and see if you've ever done this.
Uh-oh. The light switch is way over there. Where's that flashlight? Whoa!
Always use the available light source.
Paul, have you seen Brian's skateboard?
And don't forget to replace used light bulbs and repair faulty light switches before someone trips and falls. If you must enter a dark room and there is no available light source, use a flashlight and walk slowly.
Now let's take a look at some other trip hazards you might encounter on the job. Walkways should be kept free of objects and clutter. That includes briefcases, pocketbooks, trash cans, even shoes. Remember to close file cabinet drawers. Carpet that doesn't lay flat should be tacked or taped down. Elevators, when they don't match up just right with the floor, also present a trip hazard. This is most frequent in heavy-duty freight elevators. Always pay attention to the threshold when stepping into or out of an elevator.
Cables run across walkways are a frequent problem. Try to use rubber coverings or reroute it. And if the cord is only temporary, tape it down.
All of the trip hazards we've discussed can be easily eliminated if you first learn to recognize them, and second, take the time to correct them. At home and at work, you can work with your family and your co-workers to prevent needless injuries.
We have already seen how slips and trips often end up as falls. In this segment, we'll discuss falls that are caused by other hazards. Two of the more common causes of falls are using ladders improperly and using makeshift ladders. Almost all of us have tried this. And most of the time, nothing bad happens. But think about what could happen. As tempting as it is to invent climbing equipment, don't. Take the time to get the proper equipment for the job. Don't be a hazard to yourself. Now that you have the right equipment, it's important that you use it properly. Make sure it's locked into position and stable. Check the rungs to make sure none are broken. And use a ladder tall enough so that you won't have to use the top 2 rungs. Any higher than this, and you and the ladder become unstable. Extension ladders, because of their height, have the potential of causing a serious fall if misused. To prevent a potentially life-threatening fall, follow these guidelines. The first is called the 1 to 4 rule. Set the base of the ladder 1 foot out from the wall for every 4 feet of ladder height. Here's an example. If the roof is 24 feet off the ground, then the base of the ladder needs to be 6 feet from the wall. To keep the ladder from slipping, have someone hold the base or tie off the ladder securely. Whenever working on a roof, the ladder should be extended 3 feet beyond its contact with the building, and never use the top 3 rungs.
There are, of course, other factors that cause falls. This is one: an unguarded and unmarked opening in the floor. A good idea is to secure the area by setting up a barricade or by roping it off.
Here are some more tips about ladders. Whenever hoses or cords are nearby, be careful to position them around the ladder in a safe way. Tugging the cord or extending it without checking the area could cause a serious accident. Nothing wrong here, right? Wrong. In a situation like this, it's a good idea to either lock the door or prop it open.
Do you know how many people are injured every year from falls on stairs? 2.5 million. Stairs don't have to be dangerous, though. Just follow these safety principles.
Always walk up or down the stairs. Take each step 1 step at a time, making sure that the lead foot is firmly planted before shifting your weight onto it. Always use the handrail, and never use the stairs as a temporary closet. Stairs, more than any place, must be kept clear of clutter.
Did you ever find yourself on the loading dock and the stairs are right here, or maybe they're way down there, but you want to get down there? So you take a look and you say to yourself, I can handle that, and you jump. Well, don't. Jumping from one level to another can cause serious injuries. Just use what's available when moving from one level to the next.
I think the most important thing to remember is that we're all in this together. I mean, it takes a group effort to keep your work area clean and free from potential hazards. This really isn't that difficult if everyone just pitches in and throws away their trash, or someone else's trash if it's cluttering up the aisleway. The key is to maintain a clean and neat work area. And that just doesn't mean your desk, but the work area around it as well.
You know, out here, things get pretty hectic at times. It takes teamwork to keep things from getting really messed up. Out here, good housekeeping is everybody's business.
They make a good point. Clutter causes accidents, and good housekeeping is a very effective weapon. Perhaps in the last few minutes you thought of some hazards we haven't mentioned here, and that's good, because the purpose of this program is to make you aware that slip, trip, and fall hazards exist and cannot be ignored. With your help, where you live and work can be made safer for everyone. Just remember, take your time and pay attention to where you're going.